The fickle nature of High Point's midnight rain mirrored the thoughts of Detective Simon Fraser. He sat in the murky womb of his office, a prison of scattered files, faded photographs, and the stale aroma of past endeavors, both triumphant and tragically inconclusive. The delicate dance of droplets on his window composed a symphony of solitude. His mind churned with the anonymous tip he'd just received, an unknown voice whispering dread-soaked words into the labyrinth of his consciousness. "Bradford Mortuary, fresh corpse, peculiarities," the voice had said. Pictures of his siblings, forever lost yet eternally young in the sepia-tinted photos on his desk, bore silent witness to Simon's battles with the shadows. Their faces, a constant reminder of his guilt, rekindled his stubborn determination. An unsolicited debt he had crafted for himself, one he pledged to repay through his relentless pursuit of justice. Stepping into the cold embrace of the night, the Bradford Mortuary rose before him. A stoic edifice, it stood shrouded in gloomy silence. Its cobblestone exterior was veined with time, windows peering out like old roomy eyes, holding secrets that turned a man's blood to ice. The flickering neon sign above the door buzzed a dismal welcome. Inside, he found Mortician Bradford, a man with a physique molded by years of lonesomeness and eyes carved with innumerable encounters with death. The air inside the mortuary felt thick with cold formaldehyde and unanswered questions. "Detective Fraser," the mortician's voice hummed like a symphony of calm and eerie curiosity. "What brings you here at this hour?" "There's been a death," Simon replied. "I need to see the body." The dead, a young woman in her mid-20s, was splayed on a metallic table, her life snuffed out prematurely. Her waxen face held an expression of terror and ecstasy, a paradox that danced around the edge of comprehension. He noticed the dilated pupils, a silver residue under her tongue. "Overdose, I reckon." Bradford's words sliced through the silence. An expected conclusion, Simon thought, but there was something distinctly unsettling about the corpse. An unsettling similarity to the photos of past victims littered across his office desk. He knew this was only the beginning, the surface barely scratched, the edge of a much deeper abyss. As he left the mortuary that night, a chill skated down his spine. A young junkie once told him, "The deepest secrets ain't just dark, detective. They're silent, like a predator stalking its prey." He couldn't help but feel the hush that followed him from the mortuary, a silence teeming with unsaid words and unformed thoughts. Back in the solitude of his office, he began piecing together the macabre puzzle, his mind swirling with fragments of the case, like shattered shards of a mirror reflecting his own disquiet. The rain pounded against his window, each droplet echoing the rhythmic ticking of the clock. Time, he mused, was the only true witness, but even it had a habit of wearing masks and whispering riddles. He was caught in the mesh of an unfathomable mystery, a story of curiosity entwined with desolation, a tale just beginning to unfurl its dark, tenebrous wings. In the gnawing belly of High Point's pre-dawn gloom, Simon found himself wandering aimlessly, consumed by the desolation of his thoughts. The murmur of the city, a distorted lullaby, echoed in the cavernous emptiness of the streets. It was here, in these shadowed alleyways where hope curled up to die, that he met Eddie, a soul lost in the maze of addiction. Eddie, skin stretched over bone and eyes glittering with wild desperation, hunched in the dimly lit mouth of an alley. He was a wisp of a man, frail and haunted, lost in the churning fog of his own mind. A thin trickle of silvery liquid meandered down his chin, a remnant of the drug he'd just consumed. "Got any smokes, detective?" Eddie rasped, his voice like shards of glass against a chalkboard. Simon handed him a cigarette, his gaze fixated on the silver residue glistening on his face, an eerie reflection of what he'd found in the mortuary. Lighting up the cigarette, Eddie breathed out a tale woven from the threads of insanity and genius, reality and dreams. "Got this stuff from the mortuary, man," he said, his voice a low whisper, as though the very shadows might snatch his words away. "Opens up your mind, lets you hear them. Whispers." "Whispers?" Simon echoed, his curiosity piqued. Yeah, Eddie nodded, his eyes wide and gleaming in the pale glow of the lamplight. The shadows, they whisper secrets. Plunged into an ocean of uncertainty, Simon decided to dive into the same vortex of chaos that had consumed Eddie. He took the drug and his reality shattered, a mirror broken into 1,000 pieces. His mind blossomed open, a flower blooming in the arid desert of his consciousness. He felt an unsettling presence, a vast cosmic entity, like a colossal beast lurking beneath the serene surface of a midnight sea. Back in his office, he shivered as he etched down every detail of his encounter, every ripple that tore through his senses. His mind was a ship lost at sea, tossed around by monstrous waves of thoughts and theories. He stood on the edge of a cosmic abyss. The ordinary world he'd known was slowly dissolving, and in its place emerged a terrifying reality, a realm where whispers from the void echoed through the corridors of the human mind. As the first blush of dawn brushed the dark canvas of the night sky, Simon found himself standing before Bradford Mortuary. A curtain of silence hung heavy, and the quiet dread that crawled along the walls seemed to echo the turmoil churning within him. He was no longer simply a detective. He had become a reluctant pilgrim on a journey through the grim valleys of cosmic revelation. Once more, he stepped into the funereal silence of the mortuary. This time, he saw the place differently. He saw the long shadows that clung to the corners, the air now thick with the stench of hidden truths, the echo of dread that seemed to emanate from the very walls. He realized then that the mortuary wasn't simply a final abode for the dead. It was a sanctuary for a terrifying communion. Bradford, standing there in the sullen light, his face a canvas of eerie calmness, met his gaze with an inscrutable smile. They conversed, the words weaving a tapestry of fear and fascination. As Bradford spoke of the drug, its origins, and its use as a medium to communicate with an extraterrestrial entity, the whisperer in shadows, the puzzle pieces clicked together in Simon's mind with a chilling certainty. Stealing away into the silence of his office, he grappled with the grotesque revelations. He felt 1,000 eyes upon him, the eyes of the whisperer staring from the abyss, riddling his mind with visions of cosmic proportions. Every crack in the ceiling, every flutter of the moth against the lamp, whispered horrific secrets in languages he shouldn't have understood, but did. His dreams, if they could be called such, were no longer a refuge. Sleep instead became a gateway to strange landscapes lit by alien stars, populated by impossible geometries, and haunted by the very entity he now feared yet was drawn towards. He woke each time gasping, his heart pounding like a wild drum, his sheets soaked in the sweat of unearthly terrors. And still, despite the unraveling of his sanity, he couldn't turn away. He was loyal to his pursuit, open-minded to possibilities, and selflessly dedicated to protecting the city he loved. His past haunted him, the specter of lost siblings driving him forward, fueling his resolve. The sun descended, its last dying light swallowed by the gaping maw of night, as Simon found himself once more before the mortuary. The night was ripe with an ominous hush, and the moon stared down, a silent witness to the impending end of his tale. He didn't know if he was to live to see tomorrow, yet he held his chin high, steeling himself against the monstrous tide of the unknown. Inside the mortuary, shadows clung heavily to the walls, transforming the place into a theater of eerie darkness. The scent of incense swirled in the air, masking the odor of decay and death. A macabre scene unfolded before him. The mortician, Bradford, along with a congregation of hooded figures, lost in a hypnotic trance, chanting in a tongue that echoed with cosmic horror. He confronted them, his voice tearing through the chants, bringing a sudden silence that seemed to screech louder than any sound. But his words fell on deaf ears. Their minds were not in the realm of the living, but had wandered into the cosmos, held captive by the whisperer in shadows. The cultists descended upon him, their hands cold and merciless. He struggled, but the sheer force of their fanatic fervor overwhelmed him. He was their unwilling offering to their god, the key to their communion with the celestial horror. As life began to ebb away from his mortal coil, Simon stared into the multitude of alien eyes that filled his vision. The Whisperer's gaze bore into his, an icy communion that pierced through the confines of his sanity. In his final moments, he did not flinch or fear. He stared back, accepting his fate with a selflessness born from the very depths of his humanity. His last breath escaped his lips, a quiet surrender to the overwhelming cosmos. He died not with a whimper, but with a resonating silence that echoed through the realms of cosmic horror. The world spinned on, oblivious to the mortal's lament. But in the heart of High Point, a void had opened. A void left by a detective who dared to listen to the whispers of the cosmos, who looked into the eyes of the abyss and who paid the ultimate price in the cosmic dance of horror and wonder. Simon Fraser, a man who lived with his scars, died a hero, unflinching in the face of unfathomable horrors, leaving a legacy of courage and resilience in the face of the abyss. We appreciate you tuning in. If you fancied the content, show your support with a like and subscribe. Hit the bell to keep up with our eerie adventures. Eldritch Tales Factory has plenty more to offer. Until next time.